Welcome to the Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano. Let's get you to the pulse on everything you need to know. And we are here with an extremely special guest. We are joined by First Ward Councilman Michael DeFusco. Michael, great to see you. How are you?
Well, now that's an introduction. I'm not sure the interview can get any better than that.
Look at that. Well, you know what? You give me a little wine at the beginning of the interview. This is what happens. Michael knows this.
I'm so happy to have you here in my backyard, and a glass of wine with Peter Biancamano is a good afternoon to me.
That's a great late afternoon, early evening for me. Let me tell you that much. I mean, so Michael, thank you for having us in your house. I thought that was very, very kind of you, and what a beautiful, beautiful home you do have. So thank you so much. So why don't we jump right in, because there's Hoboken, I feel like, never sleeps. They say New York's a city that never sleeps, right? We're right across the river. So Hoboken has seen a very, very low amount of cases of coronavirus. I mean, I think the case number is close to 600. You know, one death is too many, but it's only 30 deaths. But it's still both much lower than cities of the same population as ours. Many people are crediting Mayor Bala for his swift action in shutting down bars and restaurants very, very quickly. Do you think that he deserves the credit he's receiving? And if so, how would you rate his response to the pandemic?
I think the city of Hoboken as a whole has done an exceptional job. That certainly is most vocal by the mayor, who's our chief executive, but supported by 9 council members, myself included, who not only were there to move the plans forward, but on a daily basis conferred with the administration, offering up ideas that really supported a safe social distancing environment. Peter, this community should also be congratulated, because they followed what the government passed down to a T. I think that we should all be lucky not only to have a government that's working hard, but also a community that is there to support one another. And that is really, truly the beauty of Hoboken, from the Hoboken Relief Fund to the community members that supported a card sharing program that we initiated with to send cards to senior citizens. There was not one day that I went to bed not confident that this community could come together and be stronger than the virus.
Absolutely. Now, Michael, and I faced this when I was on the Board of Ed for 6.5 years.
Of course, yeah.
We have some vicious bloggers in town, let's just say. And you were criticized because a few days before everything started shutting down, you were criticized for going to New York City to use a gym after Mayor Bala shut down the gyms here in Hoboken. Yeah. And then a few days later, you posted, which I thought was very, very nice, how you went and handed out hand sanitizer to some of our most vulnerable residents. And of course, people were saying, well, he's exposing these people to the virus. Obviously, we all know that wasn't your intention.
Of course.
Of course not. But, do you think that you could have made a better decision at that time to do so?
I think that the politicization of my going to the gym in advance of a heart surgery that I had was disgusting, to say the least. The paid political blogger to the mayor, who repeatedly attacks me, really deserves zero airtime in this interview. But I will say I think we all learned a lesson through that, which is safe social distancing and making sure that we listen to each other and our concerns as the main takeaway. So that was a few days before New York shut down, and over the next 48 hours, we all learned what social distancing was, including me. And I then became front and center as somebody who wanted to make sure that Hoboken protected ourselves and protected our residents. So.
Absolutely. And by the way, how are you feeling? I know you did go through that procedure.
I appreciate you asking.
I should have asked you before, but you gave me some wine and it slipped my head, Michael.
I appreciate you asking. Everything is A-okay, but the fact of the matter is to use personal issues against me politically is why Hoboken is kind of cursed with politics. Let's keep this to the issues. Let's keep this to being cordial when we can to one another, and then hold each other to the best policies we can imaginable. And that's unfortunately what this mayor and his paid political blogger do not do.
Exactly. Well, Michael, a few weeks ago, 25 municipal employees were laid off. Of course, that number was dwindled down to 11 because of retirements and so on and so forth. The city is facing what some might say is a $20 million budget hole right now. I'm not jealous of you to being on the city council, because every time they raised taxes at the school board when I was on there, it was more gray hair in my head.
Of course.
But, obviously the pandemic is a bit of a cause for it. I wouldn't say it's the whole thing, and I'm sure you wouldn't agree it's the whole thing. If you were mayor, what would you have done differently for no layoffs to take place?
Well, there's two questions. Let's start about the budget deficit. Yeah, at the beginning of this year, we were informed by the administration that we were at least a $7 million budget deficit.
That was before COVID.
This is correct.
Right.
And by the end of January, we were looking more at a $14 million deficit. And this is before, a month and a half before we even knew what COVID was or that it was going to impact us. As the city moved forward to understand the depths of this, COVID did strike, and the mayor, in the height of a pandemic, callously let go a number of municipal employees without conferring with the city council, without showing us a budget. And that's where we are today.
Wow.
We, as a city council, are over 160 days into the year, and we have not yet seen a city budget. So what would I have done differently? It would start on day one. I would have acknowledged that the last administration had placed significant burdens on our tax base. I would have acknowledged that we needed a change in leadership, and that my election in if I had won in 2017, that my election would have brought that change that we definitely needed to Hoboken. We would have started by carving out politically connected contracts. We would have started by holding employees accountable while also thanking them for their service, creating a culture of inclusion in City Hall that starts at the mayor's level on down, because morale in City Hall has always been at a low, but it is at an all-time low under this administration.
And the mayor gets criticized, and I believe sometimes rightfully so, about how top-heavy his office is.
Of course.
I mean, and obviously, I don't want to talk about it in hypotheticals here, but I mean, if you were mayor, would you have that many aides in his office making that much money, or or certainly would you just not leave it on the taxpayer back?
Listen, we know what we're talking about, right? But
Right.
for your viewers, like what Peter is trying to say is that Mayor Bala increased the size of the mayor's office 70% over where it was under Dawn Zimmer. Beyond that, he has 2 full-time security guards at a very high level in the police force.
Right. That drive him around. I've seen him.
He's spent over $1 million in security within City Hall. And this is not to say that we shouldn't protect our mayor, that he doesn't deserve a safe workplace. But what would I have done if I were the mayor, or if one day I am to run for mayor and be elected? We're a city of 60,000 people.
Right.
The mayor can walk himself to work. The mayor can ride a bike to work. He doesn't need an $80,000 bulletproof SUV to carry him around a mile square.
Right.
The mayor needs to understand that the position he holds is not the president of the United States. It's not the governor. This is a local mayor that needs to look at potholes and fix them. He needs to walk into businesses and say, how can I help? He needs to understand that people are hurting at a very real level right now in his own city, and he's talking about defunding the police as opposed to addressing a looming tax deficit. And so where we would have been under my administration versus Ravi is all hypothetical, but I could tell you that the job of mayor is 24/7, and he does not behave like a 24/7 mayor.
Well, and you just mentioned tax increase,
Yeah.
and what I'm going to mention now is obviously very close to my heart, but I also understand that it's 2 different entities.
Of course.
The school board in town has just raised the tax levy by 10%, close to 10%. Of course, they're citing enrollment growth and they're excited in charter schools, but we all know what the facts are. The facts are that charter schools educate their students for far less per student than the actual public schools do. And the money that they are receiving from the tax increase is substantially more than what they actually needed.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the city of Hoboken should involve itself in the school board business, similar to what kind of Jersey City is doing now?
I think that the school board has been the best political.
It's 1/3 of people's tax bills. Sorry about that.
Yeah. It's a near 90. I believe it's almost near a $90 million.
It's over $90 million
Yeah.
now. And just not a lot of people pay attention. That's why I wanted to ask that question. Yeah.
It's the best political play in town, where the mayor and the city council can point at the school board and say, oh, they're independently elected. And then the school board can say, oh, well, we're independent of the municipality. But in the reality, everybody looks at elected officials in the same light, which is accountability and making sure that we're all delivering for our taxpayers. So I do think that the mayor of Hoboken should probably be able to appoint to the school board, because at the end of the day, the buck stops at the top office, and that's the mayor. And what I see from this administration is telling the public charter schools one thing, telling the public, the district schools another thing, and then playing everybody against each other and saying, well, it's a separate legal entity than my municipal budget. So yeah, I believe that they should be one thing, and we're actively watching what's going on in Jersey City. And if that proves to be successful, it's something that I would consider introducing as a potential concept in the future.
Well, Mike DeFusco's not going anywhere.
Staying
we have
here.
to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with the First Ward Councilman. Stay tuned, everybody. Peter Biancamano, your hostess with the mostest of the Pulse with Peter B. Folks, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at the Pulse with Peter B, and make sure you like and follow us on there. We're constantly updating that page with new information. And also on Instagram, for all you grammars out there, make sure you follow us there as well. We're constantly putting these really cool stories, previewing all of our episodes. And if you don't want to DM us through our Instagram or message us through our Facebook, you can always email us. And that's at thepulsewithpeterb@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Welcome back to the Pulse with Peter B. Peter Biancamano still here with First Ward Councilman Michael DeFusco, a little more tipsy after taking a few sips of wine during the commercial break. But you know what? We got to get right back into these questions. Yeah. Mike, you're still good?
I'm still good, and I'm still here.
You're still here.
People have tried to get rid of me, Peter, but I stick around.
Well, when you win 70-30 in an election, you must be doing something right. So I said I wasn't going to throw that out there, but I did. So, Michael, recently there was a vote to appoint Lizette Vega to the Hoboken Housing Authority. Lizette is a 20-year employee of Interstate Development. Your last campaign for mayor in 2017 received a $5,000 donation from Iron State. Now, of course, one thing I'd have to mention is this happens all the time in politics. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's any irregularities. However, should you and Councilwoman Falco, who ran on your ticket and won that year, have recused yourself from that vote?
It's a great question. It was brought to my attention that there may have been a donation from an associate of Iron State. It was not a direct donation from Iron State. Lizette has served the minority populations here in Hoboken, has served, has raised the standard of living. So when Council Vice President Falco brought her candidacy to my attention, it wasn't even a second guess. When those allegations were brought that there was some donation there, I cleared them through the appropriate legal channels, and I was approved to vote for the nomination into a full seat. She is not a stakeholder in Applied, and that ultimately would have absolutely changed my vote on the matter. But seeing that there's no financial interest and considering her service, it was a no-brainer to appoint her to the seat.
Well, great, yeah. So at this week's City Council meeting, you sponsored an ordinance to make the city a registration authority for bicycle permits at its garages for, I believe it was like $52 a year or something like that. Do you think this is just another way to tax residents?
If there's if there's anybody that stands against a tax increase without a commensurate return on investment for residents, it's me. I have it's all I talk about is about what are residents getting for their tax dollars. The interesting thing is that Bike Hoboken, which I have frequently gone on rides with, has seemingly distorted the intent of this legislation. It is not a tax on bikes, on bike ownership. It is if you want to park your private bike in a public garage, I am proposing that for $1 a week, you should be able to have safe, secure bike parking that's managed by the city.
And by the way, it costs $300 a month to park your car in a garage.
So this notion that somehow it's a tax and somehow it's a government overstep is exactly what's wrong with politics in distorting what I believe to be a great policy for cyclists. When you walked in here, where was my bike, Peter? Right by the front door.
Right by the front door.
And I have seen my bike stolen.
I didn't see it, but I'll see it on the way out.
We could go on for a ride. My bike has been stolen in Hoboken. My wheels have been jacked. I want to provide cyclists with a safe place to park their bikes, and that's exactly what this legislation does.
It was a huge issue for years and years. I mean, Chief Ferrante, how many times did he say, lock up your bikes, please, for the love of God? Mike, this week, you raised the flag to start Pride Month at City Hall.
Yeah.
Of course, you're the first openly gay councilman in the city of Hoboken. How far have you believed the city has come on gay rights?
The fact that I'm so willing to speak about it will show you that 5 years ago when I first ran for office, I was concerned about what being a gay man would mean in politics. And I have seen, unfortunately, both sides of it. I have seen whisper campaigns being run against me by folks that didn't want to see me in office. I've seen subliminal attacks on the way I dress, my workout regimes, my lifestyle, and my partner. I've also seen an outpouring of support and love and inclusion by this community. People that I never would have thought would have been supportive of an LGBTQ lifestyle say, Michael, we support you because of your policies. We support you because your honesty and who you are and who you love. We're learning through you. We want to learn through you. And that started 4 years ago this month when I spoke on the steps of City Hall after the Orlando massacre.
Right.
And it was the first time I ever publicly said, I am proud to be a gay man. And after I said that out loud, it really sat on me. Because you know what? I never ran that election, elect me because I'm gay. Elect me because I have an agenda that certainly would push for equality. I did it for the reasons that any local politician should run. But when I stood on those steps and when I saw the amount of people that reacted to who I was at a very heartfelt level, I said there's no going back. And so that's why when I ran for mayor, when I ran for re-election, I was proud to put forward my partner at the time, as well as who I truly was as a person.
And I have to just be honest with you. Michael and I were talking before the interview, and we've known each other 11 years now.
Yeah, long time.
I mean, and I couldn't be any more proud to see where you've come in this city.
Thank you, Peter.
I know I always enjoy the council meetings because I know I'm always going to be entertained by the first ward council. All right, one more question.
Yeah.
The 2020 mayoral race is right around the corner, and I need a Pulse exclusive here, Michael. I mean, I just need a Pulse with Peter B exclusive in your yard here. Yeah. I think it's the worst kept secret in town, but I also, I don't like to predict the future and things like that. Yeah. And I do think that if you do run again next year for mayor, you will probably prevail this time, and that's just on the record. And Josh Sotomayor, Einstein, political analyst, has said that as well. Would you like to announce exclusively on this show your candidacy for mayor next year, Michael?
I'll be a little important, nuanced here.
Okay.
I think that since I came onto the political scene, I have always stood up for independence. I don't have a political boss. I don't come from Old Hoboken, New Hoboken, and I have been honored to represent the First Ward honestly and with integrity, and sometimes with a fiery spirit that has scared politicians. Mm-hmm. Although I was disappointed we didn't find an additional 400 votes in 2017 and we lost the mayoral election, I returned to the city council eager to work with everybody, including our new mayor at the time. And unfortunately, I have not seen that level of collaboration. And as a matter of fact, I've seen a destructive force on a financial level in City Hall that is now just finally coming to light. I think Ravi is somebody that is his time's better spent in a courtroom as a lawyer. He'd rather be trading political contracts. And I think that we do need a candidate that is unafraid to stand up to the political establishment that supports him and to the negative attacks that his camp has been known to send against candidates. I am evaluating every option with those close to me politically and in my life to see if a run again next year is going to work. And I don't think it's a secret that an exploration has been going on for some time. At such a time that I'm confident that we can announce. I'll certainly let you know.
All right, great. Well, and then we can call our camera crew. We can have some wine. We can do whatever we need to do to get that announcement on air. Well, First Ward Councilman Michael DeFusco, thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter.
I mean, this was a monster interview for me. I mean, I know how busy you are. And folks, I just want to make something very clear. Michael and I basically work in the same industry in our day job.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he does it. I mean, because it is extremely busy in the media world. Not so much so right now, but, in normal times.
Yeah.
And he still finds the time to be a pretty damn good councilman here in Hoboken, according to the voters here in the First Ward. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter.
Folks, when we come back, we're going to have Petra John joining us all the way from Bayonne. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be back. Peter Biancamano back with you. Make sure you watch us on cable access every Sunday and Monday at 9 a.m. Optimum Channel 18, Files Channel 46, and Comcast Channel 190. And also, every Sunday, 9:30 a.m., we post our new episode and our segments, our individual segments, on our YouTube page. You're not going to want to miss it. Please subscribe to our channel there. We'll see you there. Welcome back to the Pulse with Peter B. And we're still here in beautiful Councilman Michael DeFusco's backyard. And we can't thank him enough for not kicking us out for our last segment. And joining us all the way from Bayonne, welcome to Hoboken again.
Hello.
How are you? Petra
Good.
Johns, Bayonne Student Council Representative at Bayonne High School.
Thank you for having me again.
Of course. I'm so excited to have you back on. And Petra, we spoke to you a few months ago regarding how the COVID-19 pandemic, is it still 19? I feel like it's been 3 years,
20
right?
years.
It should be like COVID-22 right now. But anyway, how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected high school students like yourself with digital learning and so on and so forth. And you said that it was certainly a challenge. I remember you saying that the only good part of it was that you can get up a little later during in the morning, obviously. Now, do you think anything has changed since the last time you've been on? Did you and your classmates get used to online learning and so on and so forth?
No, definitely. I think we definitely got more used to it. It was a very hard, difficult adjustment at first because there's so many dense subjects that you have to learn on your own. You're not really used to that virtual interaction. But ever since we had the virtual learning process and time has went by, I think that a lot of students got used to it and they just kind of assimilated into how everything works, and everything is going pretty well as of now, yeah.
Everything's going great. And one of the things that we spoke about too, I believe, was regarding the workload. Because I know that I was fortunate enough not to take online courses when I was in high school, but I certainly took them in college. And I noticed that the workload was always much more. I felt like I was glued to my computer screen. I mean, maybe that's why I needed laser eye surgery. Different story for a different time. But do you feel that the workload actually minimized as the year went on, or was it the same and you just got used to it?
If anything, it was more. I think
Wow.
it was more. I feel like people are a little bored. I don't mean to throw my teachers under, the shade or anything, but I think that people are a little bit more bored. They have more time on their hand, free time. And so a lot of the assignments have been lengthier. They've been taller. Even though we're at the end of the year, we're approaching the end of the year, and usually we didn't do that much at the end of the year. We would finish a week before actual school closed down, and then the half days we would just enjoy for ourselves. But now it's just tougher material, tougher content. They just keep pushing more and more projects onto us. So, I mean, we're getting used to it, but at the same time, it's a little tougher than it used to be.
Let me ask you a question. Do you feel like you actually learned that way? I mean, it was a criticism that I had for my professors when I was at Seton Hall. It was like, for online courses, that is. It was you continue to have us write journals. But what are we actually learning? I mean, besides enhancing our writing skills. I mean, I don't want to knock the wonderful teachers at Bayonne High School under the bus, but do you feel like you actually learned more digital, not about the same digitally as you have while sitting in a classroom?
I think they're doing their best in delivering the message and the lessons to the students as they could have possibly delivered them. But I do think that you're absolutely correct. It's different to have that on-person instruction versus a virtual instruction where everything is written out to you in words. But I do think that personally, I was fortunate enough, my courses and my classes don't really require, they're not dense subjects like physics and pre-calc and all that. It was very simpler to catch on to. So AP, composition and language arts. You read a book and you write. There's not really too much room or wiggle room there on virtual settings. You can just go to class and read the book and write it. So it's not too bad on my part, but I do know a lot of the students that I know, my peers, my classmates, they're struggling a lot with kind of understanding, especially physics. They're talking about how it's extremely difficult to learn. And on virtual,
I can imagine,
it was
right,
very hard
yeah.
in person. So now that it's virtual, it's very, very more difficult. So yeah.
Absolutely. And you're going into your senior year, if I'm not
Senior
mistaken.
year.
Wow, big year coming up.
2020.
Absolutely. Good thing this year wasn't your senior year, right or wrong. SATs. We spoke about this the last time. Still canceled, right?
Still canceled. The first available date is in August, and then we have one in September. But a lot of the schools, I know Yale, even Ivy Leagues, have canceled the requirement for an SAT score to be submitted with the 2020-2021 applicants. I think that a lot of my peers are more stressed out about it because we, would rather have more testing opportunities to get that score that we wanted to. And now, like I said last time, you really don't have that. You have a one-shot chance or two before you have to apply and have all your scores ready to go. So it's still canceled, but
So
do what we do.
How did the college admissions process work this year? If a person, let's say, didn't take, I know most people, 99% take their SAT their junior year. I mean, do they just base it on their first SAT score while applying to college? Or
So for the 2020-21-20 class, that's all I could speak about.
Right.
They don't want the SAT score.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Okay,
an
cool.
optional. You can submit it. Some schools are saying it's optional. Some schools are saying we don't want it at all. So it's not that.
I wish I had that when I was young.
You know what? That's the one benefit that came out of quarantine. Maybe not having to study study for SATs as much as I did. But yeah.
Too funny.
So.
Well, it looks like you, since the last time you were on, which there were a lot more cases and all of that. Are you just feeling like there's like a light at the end of the tunnel about all of this? By the way.
I do. With the restrictions that are being lifted off, and we can go to the beach and everything, I do think that there's still there's some light at the end of the tunnel, and some states are lifting off these restrictions completely. So I do see that we're approaching that time where everything's going to go back to normal, hopefully sooner than later. But it's relieving, yeah.
It's interesting. So you did were elected, appointed. I'm not quite sure to a new position at Bayonne High School. I was wondering if you can explain to the viewers what that is and what it entails.
Yeah. So I think you're familiar with it a little bit since you were a Board of Ed trustee.
Oh,
but
outing me! 6.5 years.
Pointing you right on
I
the
still
spot.
have grays all over it. I can show you the battle ones.
But no, it's that position. I mean, I guess it could be tough, right? There you go. But no, we have our meetings with the trustees, but as a student Board of Ed representative, elected by the students to represent the students at the Board of Ed meetings. So I just listen to trustees and we report back what they have, important information for them. We report that back to our meetings, and as well as just talk about the concerns that the students have to the Board of Ed trustees and help to push forward their thoughts and concerns and ideas. So
exactly, and if our boy Chris Munoz gives you any issues out there, Chris, I'm coming after. No, I love Chris because of course he's a Hoboken teacher. So, so basically you're the liaison, and it's funny we had something similar to that in Hoboken, and I noticed that the representative didn't really show up to many of the different meetings. I'm sure you're going to be at every single one of them, correct?
Oh, definitely, 100%. You get impeached if you don't, so I don't really have a choice. But I have to show up at every meeting, and I think that's what the students voted for. So something I have to uphold, and I will. Yeah.
And I have to tell you, Petra, and I'm sure you've noticed this right now because of course there's a trustee that's under scrutiny right now for saying some comments. School board is not boring. I mean,
it will be very
nowhere
interesting.
Near what the city council is, but certainly it is not boring, and it's going to be exciting, like you said. So.
A lot of the parents and the students have been contacting me and telling me my first Board of Ed meeting will be an interesting one when everybody comes back together and with the comments that you just referenced to. So I'm looking forward to hearing what's going on. But yeah,
exactly, and of course you have to stay neutral, of course.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Now, okay, so we have a little bit of time here. What does a young woman do going into her senior year over the summer? I mean, it's not like we can all go out and have any drinks because you're a few years exactly below that. I mean, like everybody else has been going out since the governor lifted the stay-at-home order and opened up outdoor seating earlier this week. What does a young woman going into her senior year of high school do on her last summer before her last year of high school?
See, I think that you either fall into one of two groups, right? You're either extremely sick of the quarantine and you're going to abuse and use any restrictions that are being lifted off, which again is reasonable as long as you're following the restrictions that are still imposed. But I see that group of people, and I see people who are completely still paranoid and will not leave their house and will always have their masks on, no matter the consequences, no matter the restrictions that are being lifted off. So I see both sides. Personally, there's not that much to do during the summer except going to the beaches, and I hope all of the restrictions to the beaches will be lifted off by then completely. I had a few trips that are canceled, so bummer, and I also had a few trips that are being pushed back, so that's something to look forward to. But again, what I'm experiencing is nowhere as tough as other people, what they've been going through COVID and the 2021 class. So I'm still fortunate that I'm going to have to enjoy my summer. It's not my last summer before college, but probably just the beach.
Just the beach.
Yeah.
The Jersey Shore, as we like to say, right?
The Jersey Shore,
Any
yeah.
specific shore town that you like?
Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore, but any
just
specific
in
town?
general. No, nothing specific, but
okay.
yeah.
That's what I liked here. Well, Petra John, all the way from Bayonne, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
we
having me
hopefully
again.
can see you. Maybe you can give us like a little report about those Bayonne BOE meetings going forward.
The next one will be interesting, so
that
perhaps.
certainly will. Thanks again.
Thank you
Folks,
for having
join
me.
us next week for The Pulse on everything you need to know. I'm Peter Biancamano. Have a great week. Peter Biancamano, your hostess with the mostest of The Pulse with Peter B. Folks, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at The Pulse with Peter B. and make sure you like and follow us on there. We're constantly updating that page with new information. And also on Instagram, for all you grammars out there, make sure you follow us there as well. We're constantly putting these really cool stories, previewing all of our episodes. And if you don't want to DM us through our Instagram or message us through our Facebook, you can always email us. And that's at thepulsewithpeterb@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.